you're like watching, what's around you at that time. And if you're not paying attention, if you're distracted, you're going to miss some of the beauty that the natural world offers.
This episode of Grounded in Maine is sponsored by ESG Review. ESG Review magazine is published quarterly in February, May, August, and November, and is available for free in print and digital formats. ESG Review is devoted to environmental, social, and governance strategies, technologies, and investments. ESGreview.net is updated every Wednesday with 8 new stories and is home to feature articles, news items, and more. Visit esgreview.net to stay informed and help us spark the collaboration and awareness needed to develop sustainable economies and communities around the world.
There's a place where there's no trouble, no more pain, no more struggle.
Grounded in Maine podcast is an open conversation about how we show up for the world. I started this podcast out of a desire to learn new ways to be sustainable because the word sustainability is big. It can be overwhelming, and I just wanted to learn, different ways to try to be part of the solution and not feel like it's too late. So I'm talking to people who are doing different things and learning so much. I hope you are too. Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy Bolduc, and my guest today is Clara Schroeder, who I met through Brittany, oh my gosh, Brittany Hansen a few months ago, and who on the podcast. If you guys listen, she was the quail lady, micro homesteading. And so Clara is an ecotherapist, and she is an Amazon best-selling author. This is a new thing. And she is a clinical psychology person. She has a degree in clinical psychology. But Clara, thank you so much for being here. I'm thrilled to have you. You've done a lot of really important work with like big names even.
Yeah, yeah, I've worked in some of the bigger corporations, yeah.
We might get to this later, but I'm just really curious. Like, how did you end up working with these guys? So, I mean, so you guys, Clara has worked with like Microsoft and Women in Cloud and Aura, Insight Timer. Like, how?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, thanks. Super happy to be here, Amy. So so my background's a little, there's a lot going on. Let me just start with that. So the way that I got to these corporations is through mostly the coaching lens. So I have this clinical psych degree. I then become a certified coach and an ecotherapist, which is what I practice mostly now. But in my early coaching career, I really got invited to kind of bring the resilience, the themes of resilience and well-being to some of those tech companies and women, especially in technology or biotech. And that's how I met Brittany at Women in Cloud. Um, and so I was teaching basically a workshop series for them in, finding more of that balance or the well-being, the resilience to thrive in their personal and professional lives. So
Oh,
it's mostly through coaching and Insight Timer and Aura Health. That's through mindfulness teaching, which I also do, and it's a big part of my work now. I still work for those two platforms.
awesome.
And that's the spiritual side of me. And then there's more the corporate. And so you just multidimensional.
Well, aren't we all?
Exactly. Exactly.
And can I also just ask, 8 countries?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a very global background. I
Amazing.
I have citizenships in 2/3 countries. My parents are, there's one that's
Slash
expired.
three.
Twice. My parents, yeah, so we're from Europe originally, different countries there. I moved around a lot. And I've been in California for 14, 15 years, which is crazy with that.
Wow.
Until I turned 16, I'd lived in 6 countries and then two more after that. Yeah,
Wow. How many languages do you speak?
uh, 3.5. I understand four. I speak, sometimes I lose, sorry, yeah, I speak like four and I'm learning a fifth one. Because my partner is Italian and that's the one language I don't have. So,
Oh, was that on purpose that you chose this person?
who, you know what? Life is funny. Life is just like that sometimes. So.
That's really fun. I mean, I speak one language, but I can sing almost any language. I
There you
don't have any idea what I'm singing for the most part.
go.
Okay, well that's really interesting. And so the book that you just published it not too long,
Yes,
like a
a
month
couple
ago?
weeks ago. Yeah, not
Yeah.
even. Hmm.
Called ReNature,
Hmm.
How Nature Helps Us Feel Better and Do Better.
Hmm.
So can you tell us about the book, like where that came from and why?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned in your introduction, I am an ecotherapist, and so I can get into what that means in a second. But basically, the book was a way for me to reach more people in answering kind of like the mental health crisis and emotional health crisis that's going on, plus the ecological crisis. And I really believe deep down that we have a disconnection problem in
Mhm.
our society. And I don't want to overly generalize, so I'm going to be more specific. I think in our kind of Western built world or Western society, the way that we think of the US, for example, and I'm speaking not of, especially not including Indigenous and Native American cultures, because they have something completely different in terms of spirituality and connection to the earth. So I'll just put that as a context. But I'm in the Bay Area of San Francisco, so big tech scene. Silicon Valley's right there. I actually went to school there for a few years and dropped out because I hated it. um, we spend so much of our time living in, concrete jungles or just really on our computers a lot or our phones, and we forget that, we are always connected. You were talking about your chickens right before this, and we are connected to nature at our core. I strongly believe that. I'm also an ecotherapist, so of course I'm going to believe that, and that's what I teach people.
Mhm.
And I think that the more we remember that and we kind of adapt our practices or our lives to feel and cultivate that connection with the more than human world, the natural world, the better we're going to feel, and the more we're going to want to protect that part of our lives and our future. And I mean our future, I mean the human future, but also the ones of the wild beings and the oceans and the mountains. And so that's kind of the philosophy of the book, and why the book now is because I recovered from a traumatic brain injury. It was not even 2 years ago now. So that was a crazy process. It was a car accident,
Mm.
and I really felt like I was being given a second chance at life. And so when you coming out of that, I was just like, I have a mission, and I'm so lucky to be alive and to have something to share. And it was almost like a dream that I'd had, but I never really pursued. And I think just it was healing to write, but it felt important for me I was on an impact. I wanted to contribute more so to the crisis that I just mentioned.
Oh, oh my gosh, I so hear that.
Mm.
And I'm so glad that you're okay after that. I was in a car accident six years ago, and while I was recovering from said car accident, I started a business, which was never in my plan, like
Mm.
not in my life plan.
Wow.
But I was like, this is I feel like I need to try this.
Yeah.
And then after that, like I started the podcast while I was still doing this business. But like it is sort of like a like I have another chance, and like I'm not gonna like just stay on this path of
Yeah.
like I don't want to say nothing, but just like, why not try something different? Like
Yeah.
what's the harm really? And so
Finding, yeah, exactly.
yeah. And so while you were talking, I had a couple of thoughts, and we'll see if I can remember them both. So the first was, you were talking about the fact that we're so connected to technology and we live in our offices and like, whatever. But I was like, and this has not it has not um really connected with me the fact that when we're not on our laptops, we're on our phones, basically. And that it's so true. And it just didn't occur to me that we are always connected. And that's why, and you said that you listened to the episode with
Yeah.
Kelsey, um who was just a few weeks ago, who's awesome. And so the 24-hour screen free challenge is so important, just to like to test, to practice, and just see if, see what we feel when we're not connected. Is it complete anxiety? Is it like peace? Like what's going on? What, what if there's any change? And then there was another thought that I had. Oh, look at me. I'm remembering everything. Um, do you think that there's a correlation? Oh, if I can make words, let's see. I have my thought between you were saying we were disconnected from, the nature and the outside world, that type of thing. I think it's probably like an obvious answer, but I mean, in with all of your education and experience in this world, like, do you think that the disconnect from nature is directly correlated with the connection with technology?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking about actually when you were just formulating the first thoughts. So, we're like talking to each other telepathically or something. Yes, the answer is yes, because I think our technology, the screens take us out of the present moment.
Mm,
It's really hard. Obviously, I'm a mindfulness teacher, so I'll caveat that because I'm talking about like the present moment. So if people don't know what that means, it means kind of like you were saying, like we need to start feeling our emotions, or not that we need to, but it's easy to not do that when you're looking at a reel or social media in general. So when you're talking about connecting with something like nature or your chickens or your dog or your cat, you're going to be in the present moment. Like it's really hard to start to pay attention on a bigger scale if you're like thinking about other things, or obviously watching something else or like multitasking. And so the more that we also live in a virtual world, the less present we are in our outside world. And
mhm.
I mean, obviously the pandemic didn't help with that when we all had to do, virtual, and even coming out of that, the studies are really interesting on youth, but
Right, because then we're bringing work into the home and just like like confusing everything.
yeah, that balance is getting, those lines are getting blurred. But you can't, like, you have to be so present to notice. Like, I think you even mentioned this in the interview with Kelsey, is like the birds, or you're like watching, what's around you at that time. And if you're not paying attention, if you're distracted, you're gonna miss some of the beauty that the natural world offers. I use examples. So I studied in New York for my master's in New York City, Manhattan. And I always remember I was walking with a friend in Central Park, and I stopped. It had just rained, so we were, walking along. And I stopped while we were talking. And I said, "Look, that pigeon is taking a bath in the puddle." And I just saw, I got all excited because that's who I am. I have that awe, I have that curiosity for nature. And she goes, "Wow, Claire, I have no idea how you noticed that." And I said, "Well, how can you not? Because I'm cultivating all the time that like by relationship, like by, relational, dual relationship with something outside of myself.
Hmm.
When you pay attention to these signals, or there's so many other examples of that that doesn't require walking. Like I've worked with clients who have limited mobility and we're still doing nature work from their homes. And
Right.
so it doesn't have to be 5 days backpacking into the woods at all, but it's like it is a mindset and it's a practice. And I was lucky to grow up with it because I grew up with animals, because I was, for part of it, we lived in Paris, and then we moved just outside in the suburbs, and then I got to walk to school with the dogs and friends and trees. And so I think it just kind of already as a child helped me see that those other ways of seeing the world.
Yes. Something that I've thought about in the past-ish. When I was married, we would go for walks, and he was always looking up at the sky
Huh?
and like, the clouds and stuff like that. And I'm looking at the roots, and he was like, "Would you just look up?" And I'm like, I don't want to fall. But it's not like either of us were looking at our phones or anything like that. But it's just like the vision is so different. And neither of us are seeing the same thing, which I just always thought was interesting. There's no real point to this, I don't think.
That's
But it was just that, we were not connected, but then also not seeing the same thing. So we were in nature, but seeing different nature, which I just always thought was interesting.
And it depends on the kind of the person's disposition, right? When I work with clients in ecotherapy, so if I do outdoor sessions, they're gonna tell me ahead of time, like, hey, I prefer the forest for this reason, or I prefer like the ocean or the beach because I need that expansive view. Like I'm for sure more of a ocean person because I like the horizon line versus some of my friends or clients like the kind of cozy of a forest trail or the woods or so it really depends on kind of like your personality, your disposition, what your experience in nature has been. And there's no right or wrong either. Like it's really about your experience and what brings you that joy, that, kind of hope or whatever, that awe. There's so much science on awe in nature, but I love science and I love data. And so that's what I threw into the book for the first three chapters is all kind of like research based.
Ah, yeah, I've had a couple of podcast guests that talked about that, and it really opened my eyes to the importance of just really noticing and just the expansiveness and the abundance and like when you find awe. And I just saw something, I feel like it was an Instagram reel not too long ago about, be looking for that awe. Like we should try to find that every day, at least once a day.
Yeah, it's really good for your mental health. So I'll say that for sure. And it's in nature or the outdoors, or even in your own house, if you have a house plant, that's easy. It's easier to do that way because the minute you connect to something outside of yourself that's not, technology based, something is going to shift in your mind and your
Mhm.
heart, hopefully.
Right, right. Yeah. And so I also wanted to just really quickly bring up the fact that last week's episode, when this comes out, the week before, I spoke with Vince Aiello about foraging and
Yeah.
herbalisms and stuff like that. And so one of his points was we are nature, like just
Yes.
that simple, that profound. And so I think I was telling you that I might do like call it a series because
Yes.
it feels almost like you guys are it's like going in line. We're just expanding on some ideas that we had talked about. But I think that, you were saying we we have lost our connection in a lot
Mhm.
of ways.
Mhm.
And this is not in chronology. My thoughts are just not chronological.
No, exactly. And there's so many reasons for that. And it goes back to like some of the early philosophers, like the French philosopher René Descartes, who's super famous for saying basically like in talking about humans that we're superior and the natural world is a place of extraction, and then the industrial revolution came along, and then some of it has to do with some of the religions, and like nothing against religion obviously, it's just over time in history we saw these trends, and they've kind of become accentuated over time, and now obviously we have a climate crisis, and so I'm in the climate space because of mental health, and you're seeing more of that disconnection because I mean, climate trauma is pulling people away from like wanting to spend time, wanting to connect. And I mean, that's a whole other thing. It's like, how do you use things like forest bathing or ecotherapy to help climate disaster survivors to find peace again? And I can share a story from the book from a hurricane survivor who I remember when I first interviewed her, she said, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. She said, "Oh, I'll know that when I can bathe in that river that destroyed lives in my town again,
Yep.
will have I will have healed." And sure enough, by the time the book came out, because this has been a long time in the making, she had sent me a picture of her and her son in the river.
Oh.
And
And
so
so that's what you mean by climate trauma.
yeah, yeah, climate trauma is I think of people who've been deeply affected, who lost, homes and maybe other people that they care about through climate disasters. So wildfires, hurricanes, flooding. I'm in California, and that's a big part of the summers and the fall here is wildfires, and people with PTSD and people who I know someone else. I interviewed her for the book, and I couldn't include all the stories, but they had to move out of state. They decided that like they lost their retirement home they had built from scratch, They were just in a small rental this whole time. They were like, this is the retirement, this is our like dream. They own the land, and then they're like, I can't, this
Yeah.
is just too much, the weight of that. And so they moved to where they hopefully won't have wildfires.
That would be me, 100%.
I mean, and that's okay. It really, like, there's nothing, and it's all new, right? So this field, and I'm not a clinical psychologist. I am an ecotherapist, and I don't work with clinical populations because of my background. That's more coaching post masters. And so, and there are people who are doing it and who are helping those populations, right? And it's just, it is about finding peace and adapting. And then there's the sustainability and the pro-environmental behavior component, which is also kind of part of my strategy. Is if people feel more connected and want to spend time outdoors or whatever, wherever they live, like they feel connected to the land,
Mhm.
they're going to want to protect it. And then you inspire, your kids or your friends' kids or your colleagues. Like the reason I work with organizational teams, corporate teams, is because um, the more like something happens, obviously in the dynamics of the people and on retreats or things like that, but also they start to put together like, oh, we can make a difference, we can have impact. Like these places matter. I once walked into a room. I was going to give a resilience talk it was a women's group in business and biotech, and all the blinds were down. It was huge bay windows. I mean, there was like concrete outside with some plants because it was a campus. And I was like, those blinds got to go up. There's sunshine. You can't even see the sky. You can't see the plants.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking
I'm
about. This
here
is
now. Open the blinds. Yes.
yeah. And the research on having indoor plants in offices, fake or real. It's better if they're real, but it's still worse if they're fake. They're like people are more productive, more creative, less stressed, kinder
Mhm.
to each other. I mean, I'm not making this stuff up, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. My neighbor here, who I've never met, I don't know I've ever seen her leave her house, but like, her blinds are closed all the time. Doors closed, blinds closed. It's like vacant except there are three cars in the driveway, and I see other cars come every so often. So I'm just like, what? Why do you have like you make sure that your lawn is so perfect, but you never go out to see it? It's really interesting
that's
to me.
yeah. And most likely the TV could be on all the time too. And like again, I'm not gonna judge
Sure.
anyone. And what would it be like to open those blinds, turn off the TV for 5 minutes, and go sit outside and watch what's going on? That and then immediately you're more connected to something outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know?
for sure. And so I just want to back up a tiny bit and just for my own clarification, you said that you're not a clinical psychologist,
Correct.
but that's actually what your major is. Is it
Yeah,
is
yeah,
it
yeah.
just like a matter of training and
Yeah, so my master's is clinical psych, and then basically I had like a choice. I could either pursue licensure to become a LMFT, life, marriage family therapist or counselor,
gotcha.
or I could go the coaching route and get certified there. Ecotherapy was always the end goal. I knew that coming out of my undergrad, and ecotherapy is an interesting industry. It's newer. It's only since like the late 90s. And you can approach it from either a coaching lens, so non-clinical populations, or the licensure lens.
Oh,
So the training that I did for ecotherapy, when I reached out, he was like, okay, you have this master's. Now, if you want to do this, you have to be either, licensed as a clinician, as a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but that's med school, I think, or a certified coach. And so I went and did that, and I loved it. And I chose that for myself. Sometimes I think, oh, maybe it would have been licensure would have made sense as well. And I am a highly sensitive person. I'm super empath. And I just knew that it would be a lot harder for me to hold space for people who have high trauma, you
oh, for
know,
sure.
have, diagnoses that are heavier to hold space for it and help them work through it. That's just not my strength. And so that's why, yeah, ecotherapy, and that's why I'm not a clinician, and I would never pretend to be. And then when I have to refer someone out, or if they're not like, if I wouldn't take someone with high trauma on the trail because that's just beyond my capacity. I know a lot of cool people that I train with who would do that and can do
Hmm.
that really well.
Okay. Thank you for that. And
Yeah, of course.
that makes so much sense. I mean, I can't even imagine taking on more weight than what we already have. And so to that note, can you explain what it I'm impressed that ecotherapy has been around since the 90s,
Hmm.
honestly. And that's really cool. But what exactly is an ecotherapist?
Yeah, so and again, I think everyone does it a little bit different. Have you heard of forest bathing, first of all?
I have heard of it.
Familiar, okay. They're different, but sometimes people put them in the same bucket, and I understand. Ecotherapy, the way that I was taught and the way that I practice it, is really this belief, which is what we've been talking about this entire time, that we cannot feel fully whole or well in our lives, and because if we're so disconnected from nature. And
That's
so that we are nature, 100% like I yes. And so ecotherapy is a way to, it's like you take therapy off just an office setting or a Zoom setting, and you might do it on the trail. You might do it, like when I worked with someone virtually, she would sit out and inside or outside and watch the garden and the birds come and go or whatever we were working on that day.
Mm.
And so it's this belief that nature is my co-guide or my co-therapist or is like a healing container. And then my job in that, because there's people who will recreate outdoors, and I'm also an outdoor guide, so it's part of my job. Yeah. And that's cool. Like I take people camping, kayaking. I actually work with medical professionals in that setting, hiking, and that's good. That's all great. Like for sure, recreate outdoors if you want to. Ecotherapy goes deeper than that, in that like I'm almost becoming like a translator or a messenger between the natural world and the client. So like if someone's working through something and talking about a topic and all of a sudden like the thing that I can remember that really struck out to me from my training is we were just practicing each other, and this person was talking about her grandfather, late grandfather, and we were walking slowly, and all of a sudden, like sun comes through the trees and it's streaming down on us, like big
Oh,
sun ray. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, I associate my grandfather with the sun." And so it deepens the healing, it deepens the inner work right away. And so, or like one of the sessions from last fall that's in the book is she was talking about times of transition and kind of like contemplating life and things like that. I think because of someone in her family who was older. And then it was fall, so the leaves are on the ground. And so what does that process like? What does that bring? So you're basically connecting. Sometimes I'll say like human consciousness with nature consciousness or whatever. Like you're connecting both. And that's just the way that I practice. It's definitely not how everyone does it. Some of the more clinical people will do more clinical work, obviously, just do it outside, and that's one format.
hmm.
I'm really more about the relationship,
Okay.
and deepening that, our connection with the earth.
I love it. That's so
Mm.
awesome. And that story about the sun ray, oof,
Yeah.
that had to just that had to be really moving just to be present for that.
Yeah.
And was
It-
that in person, that
yes.
visit? Yeah. Goodness
Hmm.
gracious. I
Hmm.
just feel that. I feel like I could feel that when you were just talking about it.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. That's wonderful. I mean, I think it's such an important thing to just be, I mean, you're a mindfulness person, so just like I say it all the time, like we just need to be really mindful about what we're doing and what we're taking in and make sure that we um take time out to, be outside, be in nature, to appreciate what's out there. Um, and not like in a bossy way, but just,
Yeah.
just think about what happens in our brain and in our hearts and how that sun ray feels when you're outside or, how it's raining here right now. So like, when you see a pigeon bathing in a puddle or, you see the pretty rainbow in the puddle, which is, of course oil, but whatever. When you see the pretty rainbow in the puddle or the smell of the rain on the grass or something like that, just take a moment to take that in and think about that.
Definitely.
Was there more that you wanted to say about the book? I feel like we didn't talk about your book very often, very much.
Um, I think
Amazon bestseller, you guys.
yeah, that
Her
was
first book.
yeah. So I mean, I think I mentioned this. It starts with more of the research and the evidence, for why this works and why it's important and why it relates to the climate crisis. And then I go into more of the what I call the spiritual part or the connection. And there's a whole chapter on resilience also because I love resilience. Having gone through a traumatic brain injury
Right.
and how nature helps us build that resilience. And then it's more like you were just mentioning the water. One of the people that I interviewed, he's a mindfulness teacher. He's my mindfulness teacher, Mark Coleman. And he talks about, when you have I have tea right here. So like when you have a cup of coffee or tea in the morning, for example, just pause, try pausing and think, okay, where did this water come from that's making my tea and my coffee? And more often than not, it's from the rain that trickled down to the like whatever your local reservoir that's not being treated, that's not in your cup. And immediately you're interconnected with the natural world. Or you think about who grew the coffee beans? Like where did they come from? What's that soil like? What's that land like? And who are the amazing people who brought it to me? The growers and then the farmers and the middleman and the roaster and your person at your local grocery store is going to sell you that coffee bag. Like it's not even just about the nature part, but you're also connecting with humanity. And then you just feel like nature connection is a solution to feeling less alone overall also.
Mm.
And so all those things, so then I go more into like how to do this. How do you practice it on your own without going on a 5-day trekking experience in the mountains? Because
Right.
that's just not possible for everyone or anyone. Like that you don't have to do that.
Hmm.
So it starts like, yeah, how to get there, and either meditations in there, and I think you would enjoy. I'll send you a copy, by the way, Amy, of the book, because I was just thinking the last chapter is about like love and compassion for all living beings. And so I know like you have your dog and your cats, and that's a big part of it as well, as how can we learn to love better. I think that's actually what I called the last chapter is it's not just about people, it's about every living being that makes up the world or the natural world.
Mm.
And that's just been part of who I am because I was competitive equestrian for a long time. And growing up, we have had a lot of dogs in my family. And yeah, it's just that's where the empathy comes from, and the joy also.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and of course, and now you have horses on it's your
Yeah.
parent place, right?
Mhm.
And you guys, Clara was telling me before we met that her horses were having dental dental work done. So that's like a whole different respect for life and beings. Um, and I want to back up just for a moment for the tea conversation, and I think so. I have a friend of mine from New England, Julie DeLuca Collins, talks about meditation and how she's not good at being like that, sit in the cross-legged position and om and thinking about everything. But she said, I love my strawberry tea. And every day when I have my tea, I will just watch it steeping because you have like 5 minutes while it's steeping, and you think about the tea and you notice the colors and you smell it. And, so it's just a moment, like you were saying earlier, Clara, just to get out of yourself and just to focus on something else. And she's like, it doesn't have to be like this big procession, like this big production, but just a few moments to just be quiet.
Yeah. And that is such a beautiful way to start your day, if you can. And you can even do it like there's a tea ritual, or you can, just even paying attention when you wake up. What is the weather doing? And how does that affect my body?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weather affects our bodies as we get older for sure. That's wonderful. I think that's I it sounds like um a wonderful practice just in reading the book and learning about how connected we are and to think about our place in the world and what, what we can add and what we can take in.
Yeah, and I think part of that also that we haven't mentioned is more the finding the hope piece when I
Ooh.
am thinking about climate and kind of what the state of the world. And
Girl, do we need some hope?
yeah, so I really that was a big part of when I was writing it. It was making sure that the book is not doom and gloom. That's why I called it. It has a positive subtitle. ReNature is for like reconnection and reverence and all the relationship, the positive re's, but also just acknowledging that yeah, there's ways that we can build that hope and find it and take action. I lead climate cafes. Have you heard of that term before?
I have not heard of that term before.
Okay. Climate cafe is it's kind of misleading because it has the word cafe in it, but it's a gathering of people and who have feelings about what's happening in the world. And you come together and you'll have a facilitator or two. Sometimes, most of the time, they have a mental health background or some sort of, background in that facilitation. And we just hold space as a community to come together and talk about these topics and people discuss. And it's not political, it's not judgmental. We meditate a little bit in the beginning and at the end, and it's just they're everywhere in the world, at least in the US, and I know they're happening in some parts of like Europe. Um, it's to just kind of ease some of the anxiety. It's you when you feel so community. When I talk about resilience, resilience also means just to not just overcome something hard, but to grow from it. And you go from you know, hardship to growth and healing and something more positive.
Mm,
Why I wrote the book also. But so part of one of the big factors for resilience is community and connection. And so climate cafes is just like a container for that. And so, yeah, if people are struggling with some of these feelings, I would encourage them to look into it. And so I think the reason I brought that up is because I'm leading them, and it's just there's a lot of hope there. People walk out the door, they come in feeling like,
you feel
and then,
more connected.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's no expectation for them to feel better. Like it's not an intervention, so to speak.
Hmm.
It's just a safe space to for people to feel seen and heard and have good conversation.
Right. Well, it
Yeah.
sounds like sort of not necessarily like an offshoot of the book, but it's just like tied in, very tied in um, to what you're offering,
Mhm.
which is a whole host of things. My goodness. And so, I mean, I think that's wonderful. Is that something is that like in person?
There are some that are virtual. So,
Because that sounds like a really great opportunity for a lot of people because, things are
yeah,
how they are.
exactly. Exactly.
Uh,
And most of the time, like people are ours is donation based, the one that I'm hosting right now at a community center. Like it's not, yeah, I could say a lot more about that, but like that's part of the picture is to make it accessible to anyone.
mm,
And it's usually people from diverse backgrounds and like all of that is it's a psychologically safe space if it's well led and facilitated. So that's a big part of like making these tools accessible. Like I'm not here. The reason I work with corporations is that's where the bucks come in. But this this work is designed for people who really need it, especially those that are particularly impacted by these issues, right? So that's also part of my ethos is like making sure that I can serve the people that need it and also make a living, which
right,
is
of course. I mean, I think it's wonderful that the bigger corporations are making that effort um to add to their employees and not like,
it's
that
certain.
work-life balance type of thing and not just be like work, make money for me and stuff like that. It's like we want you to feel more fulfilled in life and that sounds so important to me. But so thank you for talking about the Climate Cafe. That's oh gosh, I'm so looking into that. Okay, well, so I mean, I know you have thoughts on this because this is what the conversation is about, but like what does the word sustainability mean to you, Clara?
Yeah, so I think for me, sustainability is first of all acknowledging that we are interconnected with the planet that we live on, all the living beings on this planet, all, the trees, the mountains, the oceans, the water bodies, lakes. Um, so it starts there. It starts with acknowledging that like humans are not the only species. We are the dominant species in a lot of ways that,
Good and
that's
bad.
the way it is right now. And sustainability is making sure that we leave the world better than when we found it, and that we don't make things worse. We probably don't not going to go into the Amazon conversation, but you and I have talked about it extensively. The copies that I have of my book are at home are sustainably printed. I paid a lot more for those. It was part of my contract. You receive a certain number of copies to yourself before they go to the other retailers, which they print on whatever they print on, which is a whole other thing. But, you know, I didn't don't want to cause more harm. And so in everything that I do, I'm thinking, okay, and part of that equation is taking care of yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself, then it's really hard to be there for other people. It's really hard to, be there for the planet. And so it's like sustainability is not just the eco part, it's also connection to self, connection to nature, to animals, whatever floats your boat too. Like I'm using animals as a thing, but if it's plants and you mentioned herbalism, like beautiful, my mom's a herbalist, love it. Like whatever that is, find what that is for you and then see how much deeper you can go with it. Um, in my I was participating in a climate resilience course, which is where the climate cafes came from at a university that I also work for. And the big part of the climate resilience course was for people to, there's a bird that just danced around the window as I'm talking about this, um, is for people to feel empowered and take action. And so
Mhm.
sustainability is making sure that you're sustaining yourself and connected to whatever. Also, like if it's a faith, that's great too, whatever, right? Like whatever's keeping you nourished so that next time there's a climate cafe, you show up, or next time there's a beach cleanup if you're in a coastal area, you go. Or like you see trash and you pick, I don't know, whatever. Like there's so many, a community garden, great. Like I know it sounds overwhelming, but there's something to be said about the ripple effect of things.
Absolutely.
And I have great ex-partner, I'm saying great because we're friendly, but he had no idea because of his cultural background when I first met him, and I was like, paper towels are not, especially in large quantities, and so over time, and he was like, but I'm not making a difference. That was his first line of defense, is I'm not going to make a difference as a single person. I'm like, yeah, but if you start and then someone walks into your home and they're like, oh, why are you using this weird rag instead of a paper towel? Then you're going to explain actually it's better for the planet, and then you change your behaviors and you inspire others, or you start to bring your lunchbox in a glass thing to work, and people are like, oh, you're not using plastic. Like I'm not perfect, like at all, but it's about having that motivation and trying, and then letting the ripple do its thing,
Hmm.
and finding community also.
Right. Right. I mean, well, like you were saying with your ex that, it's you're missing the opportunity to pass on information to like
Yeah.
teach is not the word that I really want, but so like leading by example, that type of thing. And then if someone says, why do you have this weird rag thing? Why don't you just have a roll of paper towels? Well, then, and then you can explain that to them and they would be like, oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah. And thank you so much for bringing up the part about, the self-care. Like that's so I'm gonna say it's so important. I'm horrible at that. Horrible at that. Um, but just to it is part of sustainability. I can't believe I fumbled that word, but um, it just I've done several episodes on like personal sustainability, in different aspects, but it's just it all is it's not all about the planet. It's not all about other people. It is also about yourself because we feel like I often feel like I'm trying to do everything and I have no brain space. Like I'm trying to not use the big box stores and take care of the planet and, make all the stuff. And I'm like, I am working day, before the sun and after the sun, like, and I'm exhausted. And so, like, thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, and part of what helps me when I think about this, because I have, especially lately, I'll be really transparent. Every time I open Instagram, I start crying because I'm seeing things and I'm like, and I'm in the field, like this is my
Right.
life.
Right. Yep.
And I have to, exactly what you just said, right? You have to remind yourself you can't fix it all, you can't do it all, and you have to pick your sphere of influence. So, like when I talk about the ripples, there's a diagram in the book. It's like concentric circles. It's probably my favorite emoji, the little blue one that's concentric circles, because you start in your concentric circle and then you let someone in the next circle do their thing.
Hmm.
And you literally like start in your community or start in your home. And there's cool websites and bloggers that talk about these things. Like it's the resources are there if you look for them, but we're not like one person is not going to do it all. But that's why also signing up for positive newsletters about, the earth or whatever, like positive news in general.
Right.
And as since I just mentioned social media, the media diet, like paying attention to how you're consuming it and when and how you're feeling internally. Because again, if I just scrolled and I felt really horrible, well, how about am I going to help my
Right.
clients?
You're going to
Or
put it down and you're going to be a wreck and be like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how can I help people now?
so it really is about that balance, and starting small and really trusting. And then things are changing. That's the other thing that I want to leave with your listeners is like things are really, really bad and things are changing because people, know how important it is. And there is hope.
Hmm.
And yeah, like I can't predict the future. Sometimes I wish I could, but or maybe I don't want to know. But like, there's, we are resilient as a species, and so is the animal kingdom, and so is the, plant kingdom and the earth as a whole system. I'm talking more on an ecosystem scale here.
Hmm.
So somewhere it's gonna shake out, but we really like the more we take care of ourselves, the more we take care of how we're connecting with the outside world, the better the odds that we are gonna get there faster.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and connecting with people is with your, the Climate Cafe and feeling that connection, feeling that hope gives us the strength to, do another day and try harder or try something new or to, bring someone else into the fold and just grow the community and mm,
Yeah,
take care of each other.
exactly. Acknowledging that and having like if you are so tired and you don't want to do anything, can you give yourself a half day or a full day and just sit on your couch and read a book or whatever, like whatever. Rest is part of that equation. Like I have not worked particularly specifically with climate activists, but I know from, my activist friends that if you don't rest, if you're always and I struggle with this myself, if you're always close to burnout, it's really hard to keep going. And in the planet, part of ecotherapy is what are we mirroring from nature? And
Hmm.
nature has her seasons and her cycles. We're going here in the northern hemisphere towards winter.
Right.
Maybe it's time to rest, to recover, to take care of yourself in other ways.
I know that's true. It's always helpful to hear it. So thank you. I
Same
mean,
for
you
me.
see, you see the memes and whatever, nature trees lose their leaves and they're still alive and fall comes and everything is resting, but what are you doing? That type of thing. I forget instantly. I forget instantly. So it's always good to be reminded. So y'all take a break, give yourself grace. Clara, thank you so much. How can we find more about you and the
Yeah.
book?
Well, the book is available at your local bookstore in terms of like ordering it online. So it is on a platform called Ingram. If I'm going to get really technical, and I'm all new to this, but it's available because so local bookstores in the US can order it on Ingram. So you can get it there, you can get it on Barnes& and Noble, or you can get it on Amazon, but I don't recommend that. And I have a website, claraschroeder.com. It doesn't have a whole lot of information, but you can reach me through there.
You can
Or
get the book.
you can get the book. My Instagram is at Living with Clarity. I have a Substack channel. I love Substack. I don't post a whole lot, so I don't want to spam people's inboxes, but yeah.
Isn't that a weird thing? You're like, I mean, I'm on Substack too, and I write every
Yeah, you
single week,
are.
and I'm like, people are like, I don't have anything really interesting to say, but here I
Well,
am.
it's just a way
I'm
for people,
practicing.
yeah, it's for a way for people to connect with you and kind of hear what's up in your world and what you're thinking about, or who you know who you're meeting that's cool or doing something interesting. Especially in your case, Amy, super cool. The
Right?
podcast. Yeah.
True. Okay, so we've got the ways to reach you, and we have the book information. I'm going to say it one last time, or if you want to say it, do you want to say it? You don't have to read it.
It's gone. ReNature, how nature helps us feel better and do better.
Yeah, check it out, you guys. Thank you, Clara.
Thank you, Amy. This was really fun.
Yeah. I just want to take a second to thank my guest again for speaking with me and sharing such great information. I love having these conversations with folks. I also want to thank Buzzsprout for hosting the podcast, for Jane Bolduck and her music genius, for Becca Coffron and her award-winning artwork. And thank you for listening. I appreciate that so much. Please check out the show notes for any links and extra information. And if you would like to follow my guest and find out more about them, I'm sure they would love the follow. And if you don't mind leaving a rating or review wherever you're listening, and just help to get this podcast in front of new eyes, that would be amazing. I would really love that. And feel free to reach out to me on the socials and let me know what you're thinking. And if you would like to be a guest on the podcast, please let me know that. I would love to have a conversation with you about sustainability. All right. Thank you again. I hope you have a great rest of the week.
There'll come a day, my mama told me, when I find love to have and hold me, a heart that's strong and so sincere. Just tell me, how do I get there from here? Oh, tell me, how do I get there from here? 'Cause here and now I'm so far down that mercy's bound to find me. We'll find a way to soothe the sickness. We'll heal the hate with sweet forgiveness. Wages of war will disappear. Just tell me, how do I get there from here? I wonder, how do I get there from here? Yeah, 'cause here and now I'm so far down that mercy's bound to find me. state of grace has finally found me. Well, there'll be music, ooh, and good friends around me, yeah, yeah. And I'll just smile through happy tears and wonder